forest is a liar. It cloaks itself in emerald canopies, soft moss, and the gentle murmur of streams, whispering promises of refuge from the world's clamor. But venture past the marked trails, where sunlight frays into shadow and the air grows heavy, and you'll feel it. A pulse beneath the earth, a gaze from the unseen. Something watches, patient, ancient, its hunger woven into the roots and the wind. My name is Luisis Riek, and in the summer of 2010, I learned this truth in West Virginia's Mananaw National Forest. What began as a carefree camping trip with friends ended in blood, silence, and questions that claw at me in the dark. The forbidden excavation unearths this story, not to thrill, but to warn. The wilderness is not empty. Some secrets have claws, and they've been stalking these lands longer than we've dared to name them. We called ourselves the Dream Team of Tent Assembly, though Calvin, Rena, and I were more likely to tangle poles than pitch anything sturdy. I was 28, a Charleston native with a love for summer trails and a habit of tossing puns so grown-worthy they drew eye rolls like moths to a flame. Calvin, wiry and sharp-tongued, carried a perpetual smirk, claiming he bore too many responsibilities in life to bother with kindling or deciphering trail maps. His quick jabs at our incompetence were half joke, half truth, masking a restlessness I never quite pinned down. Rena, a hospital receptionist with eyes that caught every detail, wielded sarcasm like a scalpel, joking about packing syringes for a quicker escape from our endless bickering. Her humor teetered on the edge of confession, leaving me wondering what shadows hid behind her grin. We rolled into Mananaw National Forest on a Thursday in August 2010, the heat pressing down until the pines exhaled warm sap, thick and syrupy, coating the air with a sweet, resinous tang. Our orange tent screamed against the forest's muted greens and browns, a garish beacon staking our claim in the wilderness. The first day was a postcard brought to life. Chipmunks darted through underbrush, their tiny paws kicking up pine needles that glittered in the sunlight. Rena snapped photos with her battered Canon, teasing Calvin for flinching at every rustle in the ferns. "City boy," she smirked, though her own gaze flicked to the trees more than once. We hiked well-trodden trails, sunlight splintering through towering pines, the creek's murmur blending with our laughter. Calvin sprawled by the fire that night, tossing lazy quips about stick gathering while I tried to outdo him with puns. "This trip's intense, huh?" I said, waggling my eyebrows. Rena groaned, but her laugh was warm, her face softened by the firelight. It was the kind of day that fools you into believing the wilderness is yours to conquer, a playground for human whims. The second night, the forest bared its teeth. A rancid odor slunk into camp, heavy and sour, like raw hide left to fester in a dumpster, laced with something chemical, almost metallic. I gagged, my throat tightening, and blamed Calvin, who shot back, "If that was me, you'd be halfway to Ohio by now, screaming for mercy." We chuckled, but the stench lingered, drifting from the creek to the pines behind us, coiling around our tent like an unwelcome guest. Rena, ever practical, suggested a dead deer caught in the underbrush, its carcass rotting in the summer heat. I nodded, but my skin prickled, a primal unease stirring in my gut. The forest's usual symphony, crickets chirping, frogs croaking, the soft hoot of owls, felt stifled, as if the air itself held its breath. Calvin noticed it too, his smirk fading as he scanned the dark, his flashlight beam cutting frail paths into the shadows. "Quiet tonight," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. I tried to break the tension with a joke. "Maybe the bugs are on strike for better hours." No one laughed. The silence pressed against my chest, heavy and alive. Morning brought no answers. We scouted for a carcass, expecting to find a bloated deer or a raccoon felled by disease. Instead, we found only squirrels chattering in the canopy, their small bodies weaving through branches. A lone raccoon rummaged through berries, its masked face indifferent to our presence. An abandoned bird nest swayed in the breeze, fragile and empty. The odor had faded, but its memory clung to us, a sour aftertaste in the air. 2 miles west, Calvin stumbled on an abandoned campsite, torn blankets shredded like paper, scattered dented and rusted. A single hiking boot half buried in the dirt, its laces frayed. The site looked like its owners had fled in a blind panic, leaving their gear to the mercy of the elements. Rena joked they'd forgotten their oven was on at home, but her voice trembled, her fingers tightening around her camera strap. My laugh was hollow, my stomach nodding. The forest no longer felt like a playground. It felt like a stage, and we were not the audience but actors in a play we hadn't read. That night, we slept in shifts, the stench and an unspoken dread keeping us on edge. Around midnight, Rena shook me awake, her flashlight trembling in her grip, its beam jittering across the tense nylon walls. "Listen," she hissed, her breath quick and shallow. Crickets hummed faintly, then fell silent, as if a switch had been flipped. A harsh rasp, like steel dragged across jagged stone, sliced through the dark. It came in bursts, echoing from deep within the pines, each scrape tightening the knot in my chest. Calvin stumbled out of the tent, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his hair a mess of curls. "What's that?" he asked, his voice low, almost swallowed by the night. I shrugged, my heart hammering against my ribs. Rena whispered she'd heard branches snapping earlier, heavy and deliberate, followed by that sound. We clutched flashlights, their beams cutting frail paths into the blackness, revealing only gnarled roots and swaying ferns. I tried to lighten the mood. At least no neighbors blasting techno, right? Calvin's laugh was a ghost of itself, barely a sigh. Rena didn't even try to smile. Then a branch snapped beyond the fire's glow, sharp, intentional, the sound like a bone breaking. Before I could swing my light, something tore across the camp's perimeter, low and impossibly fast, its movement a blur of shadow. A jagged hiss, deep and guttural, clawed the air, raising the hairs on my neck. My beam caught a glimpse. Dark fur, black or muddy brown, matted and coarse, larger than any wolf, moving with a predator's liquid grace. Its form blurred, too swift for details, but its presence pressed against my chest, heavy and wrong. My pulse spiked, my breath catching. Calvin's flashlight swung wildly, but it was gone, swallowed by the dark. The stench of rot flooded the air, thick enough to choke, its chemical edge burning my nostrils. Rena's breath hitched, her eyes wide in the firelight. We stood frozen, flashlights trembling, no longer campers but prey in a game we didn't understand. Dawn broke, gray and oppressive, the sky bruised with clouds that seemed to sag under their own weight. None of us had slept, our eyes red-rimmed and heavy. Calvin paced, his usual smirk replaced by a tight-lipped fear that made him look older, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "We pack up and go," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. "Now." Rena, stubborn as ever, argued we'd driven 6 hours for this trip, her arms crossed, her jaw set. "One weird night doesn't ruin it," she said, but her eyes darted to the trees, betraying her bravado. Could have been a sick fox or a stray dog, messed up from rabies or something. I tried to play peacemaker, tossing out a pun to cut the tension. "We can't doggone give up yet, right?" Only Calvin cracked a faint smile, more reflex than humor. We compromised, daylight hikes only, camp closer to the creek for an open view, and we'd bolt at the next sign of trouble. The decision felt like a bandage on a wound we couldn't see. We trekked along high ridges, the pines looming taller, their needles carpeting the earth in a hush that swallowed our footsteps. The paths narrowed, forcing us single file, the forest pressing closer, its branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. The faint whiff of decay trailed us, now a constant companion, weaving through the sap-scented air. Calvin tried to lighten the mood, joking about counting the ways this trip could go wrong. Bears, snakes, or my cooking. His voice was strained, the humor falling flat. I forced a laugh, but dread coiled tighter in my gut, a cold weight that grew with every step. The trees seemed to lean in, their shadows pooling like ink, and the creek's rush sounded less like a comfort and more like a warning. Rena's camera hung and used around her neck. She hadn't taken a photo all day, her fingers twitching as if itching to hold something sharper. That evening, we built a larger fire, its crackle a frail shield against the dark, the flames casting long shadows that danced across the creek's surface. We camped by the water, its rush a steady pulse in the silence, but the openness felt exposed rather than safe. No one spoke of the night before, but we sat close, shoulders brushing, our flashlights within arm's reach. Around midnight, the odor returned, carried on a swirling breeze that rattled the pines, its chemical tang sharper now, like ammonia mixed with rot. Rena cursed under her breath, her hands balling into fists. Then a scream, human, raw, and unmistakably male, tore through the night, distant but close enough to raise the hairs on my neck, its echo bouncing off the ridges. My chest tightened, my breath catching. Calvin and I grabbed flashlights and ran toward the sound, Rena shouting for us to wait, her voice sharp with panic. My beam flickered over bushes, catching fresh boot prints. Men's, size 10, pressed deep into the soil, the edges still crumbling. A few yards farther, we found him. Flannel shirt shredded, deep gashes across his torso, each wound precise and gaping, exposing muscle and bone. His eyes were wide with frozen terror, staring at the canopy as if something still loomed above. Blood pooled beneath him, still glistening in our lights, the coppery tang mixing with the rot in the air. A sickening cocktail that turned my stomach. Rena knelt, checking for a pulse, her hands shaking, her breath hitching. "He's gone," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Calvin's voice cracked, his flashlight trembling. "We need to leave, now." Before we could move, it came. It sprinted from behind a pine, taller than I'd imagined, hunched but bear-sized. Its frame a grotesque blend of power and starvation. Long, wiry limbs stretched from a sinewy torso, coarse fur matted with dirt and blood, patches of bare skin scarred and gray. Its head was canine yet wrong, elongated muzzle, teeth jagged and too many, glistening with flecks of flesh, some still pink. Its eyes, unblinking, caught our flashlights and held them. Not with animal instinct, but with something colder, calculating, almost amused. It hissed, a ragged sound that swung its maw toward us, the air vibrating with its menace. My legs locked, my breath trapped in my throat. Calvin yanked me back, his grip bruising. Rena yelped, scrambling to her feet, her flashlight clattering to the ground. We ran. The creature charged, its claws tearing earth, the stench overwhelming, its chemical edge burning my lungs. Calvin hurled a rock, striking its flank with a dull crack that echoed like a gunshot. It roared, a sound that shook my bones, angrier now, its eyes narrowing to slits. Branches whipped my face, my lungs burning as I stumbled through the dark, thorns snagging my jeans. Rena sobbed, or maybe it was me, the sound raw and foreign. Our tent was in ruins when we reached it. Sleeping bags shredded, food cans punctured, our gear scattered like confetti across the clearing. Calvin sprinted for the car, keys jangling in his shaking hand. The creature caught him. The thud, a strangled gasp. I spun, flashlight shaking, my beam catching the horror. Calvin was pinned, claws sinking into his chest, blood blooming across his shirt like a grotesque flower. His eyes met mine, wide with panic, then dulled, a light snuffed out. I froze, fear choking me, my body betraying me. Rena grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the car, her nails digging into my skin. We slammed the doors as the engine sputtered to life, coughing and reluctant. Through the windshield, I saw Calvin's body go limp, blood spattering the brush, his hand twitching once before stilling. I pounded the dashboard, screaming, tears blurring my vision, my voice raw and useless. Rena floored it, tires spitting gravel as the forest swallowed the horror behind us, the creature's hiss fading into the night. At sunrise, we stumbled into a ranger station, Rena babbling about a creature, her words tripping over each other, me barely coherent, my throat hoarse from screaming. The rangers listened, their faces unreadable, exchanging glances that spoke of secrets they wouldn't share. One, an older man with weathered hands, scribbled notes, his pen pausing when Rena mentioned the creature's eyes. They searched and found blood, torn fabric, and our ruined camp. But no bodies, no tracks, no explanation. The official report cited a rogue animal, likely a bear. But the ranger's eyes told a different story, one they wouldn't voice. I left Manana that day, vowing never to return. The rancid odor still haunts my dreams. A ghost that lingers in quiet moments, its chemical tang as vivid as ever. Was it a new species unknown to science? A sick predator driven mad by disease? Or something older, guarding its domain with blood and terror? I don't know, but it's out there in the pines waiting. My story is one thread in a tapestry of terror, woven through America's wilderness by survivors who glimpsed the same shadow. The Forbidden Excavation has spent years collecting these accounts, piecing together fragments of dread from forests, swamps, and deserts, each tale a shard of a larger, darker truth. These stories share chilling markers: unnatural tracks, a foul stench, shredded camps, and creatures that defy reason. They vary in form, canine, reptilian, hyena-like, but share a haunting unity. Unnatural size, cunning eyes, and a hunger that feels personal, almost deliberate. Rangers find blood and remains but no answers, their reports cloaked in vague excuses. Rogue bears, mountain lions, or unconfirmed wildlife. But the survivors know better. Something else stalks the wilds, and it's been here longer than our cities, our roads, our maps. In 2012, Kenneth Mercer faced a nightmare in California's Redwood National Park, where ancient trees tower like cathedral spires, their trunks cloaked in moss, the air heavy with mist and the scent of damp earth. He and friends Raina and Miles camped among the giants, their laughter bouncing off ferns as they joked about snack bars and poison ivy, their voices small against the forest's vastness. Kenneth, a grad student with a love for botany, sketched ferns in a battered notebook, while Raina, a photographer, captured the interplay of light and shadow. Miles, a self-proclaimed professional slacker, sprawled on a tarp, teasing them for taking the trip too seriously. The first night was peaceful, the fire's crackle mingling with the distant hoot of owls, the redwoods standing sentinel. The second morning, Kenneth found odd paw prints near a waterfall, its roar a steady pulse in the misty air. The tracks were elongated, with claw marks too deep and wide for a cougar. The soil churned as if something heavy had lingered. Some big cat's lost its way, Miles quipped, but his grin faltered, his hand lingering on the knife at his belt. Raina snapped photos of the prints, her lens lingering on their unnatural shape. That night, Raina's scream woke them, sharp and raw, cutting through the forest's hush. Her tent was empty, the fabric torn into ribbons, tracks leading into the dark, their edges fresh and deep. Kenneth and Miles followed, hearts pounding, their flashlights trembling, the waterfall's roar growing louder. Near its base, they found a young man's body, a hiker they'd seen on the trail, his chest battered, his eyes fixed on the canopy, blood pooling in the moss. Then it appeared, a creature the size of a mountain lion but wrong, its limbs overlong, its back ridged with bony protrusions that glinted like obsidian in their beams. Fur hung in patches, revealing scarred, grayish flesh that seemed too tight for its frame. Its eyes glowed faintly, not reflecting their flashlights but absorbing them, twin voids that pulled at Kenneth's soul. It lunged, taking Miles with a single swipe, its claws sinking into his shoulder, dragging him into the trees with a guttural snarl. Kenneth and Raina, who'd been searching nearby, ran, branches clawing their skin, the creature's rasping breath at their heels, its stench of rot and wet fur choking the air. They reached their car, tires screeching on the gravel road as they fled, the redwood's shadows swallowing the horror behind them. Rangers searched, finding blood, footprints, and torn fabric but no bodies, no creature. The report blamed a bear attack. But Kenneth saw the rangers' unease, their hands lingering on their radios. He still hears Miles's scream in the quiet of night, wondering if the redwoods hide a predator older than the trees, its roots as deep as theirs. In 2011, Frank Reading met horror in Ohio's Cuyahoga Valley National Park, where rolling hills and dense forests hide creeks that glimmer like silver in the moonlight. Camping with Jared, Lucy, and Noah, Frank felt at home, his love for birdwatching drawing him to the park's quiet trails. Jared, a mechanic with a quick laugh, teased Frank for his binoculars, while Lucy, a nurse, kept the group grounded, her calm voice a steady anchor. Noah, a college friend with a penchant for ghost stories, spun tales by the fire, his words weaving unease into the night. The first day was idyllic, with warblers flitting through the canopy and the creek's murmur a soothing backdrop. But the second morning, Frank noticed elongated claw marks by the creek, the soil freshly churned, the marks too precise for a bear, their edges sharp as if carved by a blade. A foul stench followed, like spoiled meat left in the sun, laced with a chemical tang that stung his eyes. "Something died out here," Lucy said, but her voice was tight, her hands fidgeting with her med kit. At midnight, a metallic screech woke them, like nails dragged across a chalkboard, the sound vibrating in their bones. Jared and Noah's tents were empty, their gear scattered, sleeping bags shredded. Frank and Lucy searched, their flashlights trembling, the stench growing thicker. By the creek, they found Noah's body, shredded beyond recognition, his face a ruin of claw marks. Jared lay nearby, his chest caved in, ribs gleaming in the moonlight. A bipedal creature emerged, canine-like, with glowing green eyes that seemed to pulse, its maw glistening with blood. Its fur was matted, its frame wiry but powerful, its movements deliberate, almost taunting. Lucy swung a hatchet, grazing its shoulder, drawing a spray of dark blood. It roared, a sound that shook the trees, then retreated into the dark, its screeches echoing behind. Frank and Lucy fled, the stench choking them, their boots slipping in the mud. Rangers found the bodies but no beast, their report citing a rogue animal, possibly a wolf. Frank replays that night, the claw marks burned into his memory, his hands trembling when he hears running water. He wonders if it's a mutated predator, thriving in the park's forgotten corners, or something older, stirred by their campfire's glow. Dwayne Barnes, in 1997, faced a scaled horror in Arizona's Saguaro National Park, where cacti stand like silent sentinels under a merciless sun. With Marcus, Vince, and Allison, Dwayne hiked through the desert, the air shimmering with heat, the ground crunching under their boots. Marcus, a geologist, marveled at the rock formations, while Vince, a chef, joked about grilling cactus for dinner. Allison, a writer, scribbled notes, her eyes scanning the horizon for inspiration. The first night, they found a shredded campsite a mile from theirs. Its tent poles snapped like twigs, a sleeping bag torn to ribbons. A foul odor hung heavy, like rotting fish in the desert heat, its chemical edge like ammonia. Locals had warned of strange tracks, but Dwayne dismissed them as coyote tales, his laughter masking a flicker of unease. That night, a creature attacked, coyote-like but covered in gleaming scales that caught the moonlight, its eyes cunning and cold, like polished obsidian. It moved with a serpent's grace, its claws like black glass, tearing through Vince and Marcus with savage precision. Their screams echoed off the saguaros, sharp and fleeting. Dwayne and Allison ran, the creature's hissing pursuit driving them to their truck, its claws scraping the metal as they peeled away. The rear window shattered under its weight, glass raining into the cab, Allison's scream piercing the night. They escaped, the desert swallowing the beast's hiss. Rangers found tracks like a giant lizard's, deep and triangular, but no creature, their report vague and dismissive. Locals whispered of mutated species or escaped experiments from a nearby lab, their voices low, their eyes darting. Dwayne dreams of those eyes, glowing in the starlight, their gaze heavy with intent. He wonders if the desert hides a predator born from human folly or ancient bloodlines, its scales a relic of a time before the sands. Big Bend's hyena horror. In 2012, Bill Stone encountered a hyena-like beast in Texas's Big Bend National Park, where rugged mountains and dry washes stretch under a sky vast enough to drown in. With Neil, Bill camped near a dry wash, the air thick with dust and the scent of creosote. Neil, a park ranger on leave, knew the trails like his own pulse, his calm presence steadying Bill's city-bred nerves. The first day, they found claw-marked tracks near the wash, the earth scored as if by a blade, the marks too deep for a cougar. A torn deer carcass lay nearby, its wounds precise, the flesh stripped in neat ribbons. "Something's hunting out here," Neil said, his voice low, his hand lingering on his knife. That night, a low, long creature attacked, its jagged fangs glinting, its mane bristling like barbed wire, its eyes glinting with a predator's malice. Its cackle was a sound from nightmares, sharp and mocking. They stumbled on Trevor, a lone camper, trembling beside his dead friend's body, his face pale, his hands clutching a broken flashlight. The beast lunged, killing Trevor with a snap of its jaws, blood spraying the rocks. Bill and Neil fled, the creature's cackling howl at their backs, its stench of rot and musk choking the air. They reached their truck, the engine roaring to life as the beast's claws scraped the tailgate. Rangers found scattered gear but no bodies, blaming desert predators, in a report that felt like a lie. Bill suspects a mutated species, its form warped by the harsh land, its hunger honed by the desert's cruelty. He still hears that cackle in the wind, a sound that follows him to the city, where streetlights can't banish the dark. Chad Lafferty, in 2013, met a reptilian horror in Georgia's Okefenokee Swamp, where cypress trees rise from murky waters, their roots tangled like secrets. With Brian and Eddie, Chad paddled through narrow channels, the air thick with humidity and the buzz of insects. Brian, a biologist, cataloged plants, while Eddie, a mechanic, joked about wrestling alligators for fun. The first day, they found triangular claw prints on a muddy bank, the marks deep and fresh, unlike any gators. A shredded tent lay nearby, its fabric caught in the roots, a sleeping bag torn open. A foul stench clung to the air, like decay and brackish water, its chemical tang stinging their eyes. "Something's off," Brian said, his voice tight, his notebook forgotten. That night, a turtle-like creature emerged, upright, its spiny teeth gleaming, its eyes like polished amber, its scales glinting in their lantern's glow. It devoured a hiker they'd met on the trail, his screams swallowed by the swamp's murk. It turned on them, shattering their truck's window with a swipe, its claws scraping the metal. Chad and Eddie fled in their canoe, Brian's paddle shaking, the creature's hissing roar fading into the dark. Rangers heard rumors of disappearances and strange tracks but found no proof, their report dismissing the account as swamp fever. Chad believes it's an undiscovered species, claiming the swamp's depths, its territory vast and untamed. He still smells that stench in his nightmares, the swamp's pulse a reminder of what lurks beneath. Hal Garfield, in 2010, faced a wiry beast in New Mexico's Gila National Forest, where rugged ridges and pine forests stretch under a sky that feels too close. With Quentin, Hal camped near a clear stream, the air crisp with pine and earth. Quentin, a hiker with a love for solitude, led the way, his quiet confidence steadying Hal's unease. The first day, they found canine-like tracks, too large for a wolf, their claws digging deep into the soil. A foul stench followed, like rotting meat laced with ammonia, its edge sharp enough to sting. A clearing held a torn body, a hiker they'd passed, his bones exposed, his face a mask of terror. "This isn't right," Quentin said, his voice low, his hand gripping his knife. That night, a hunched, elongated creature attacked, its fur sparse, its limbs spider-like, its eyes glinting with a predator's focus. It shredded their camp, killing a hiker who joined them, his screams sharp and fleeting. Hal and Quentin fled, the creature's rasping breath at their heels, its stench choking the air. They reached a ranger station, their clothes torn, their faces pale. Rangers found bodies but no beast, their report vague, citing wildlife activity. Hal wonders if it's an apex predator, hidden in the ridges, its existence erased by the forest's silence. He still feels its gaze in the dark, a weight that follows him to the city, where concrete can't shield him. Calvin Rowe, in 2011, met a Wolverine-like horror in Redwood National Park, where fog clings to the trees like a shroud. With Hank, Calvin camped near a coastal trail, the air heavy with salt and moss. Hank, a surfer with a love for the wild, joked about riding waves with bears, his laughter a bright spark in the gloom. The first day, they found a torn deer, its ribs cracked open, the wounds too precise for a cougar. A foul stench followed, like rot and wet fur, its chemical edge stinging their eyes. That night, a creature attacked, its spine bowed, its teeth glistening, its fur bristling like spines. It took Hank, dragging him into the fog, his screams swallowed by the redwood's hush. Calvin fled, the creature's rasping breath at his heels, its stench choking the air. Rangers found remains but no beast, blaming a rogue animal. Calvin suspects an ancient predator, its form twisted by time, lurking among the redwood's shadows. Sam Caldwell, in 2012, faced a coyote-like beast in Arizona's Kaibab National Forest, where pines stretch toward a sky that burns with stars. With Henry, Sam camped near a meadow, the air crisp with pine and earth. Henry, a teacher with a love for history, spun tales of native legends, his voice steadying Sam's city-bred nerves. The first day, they found a torn tent, its fabric shredded, Henry's body nearby, his throat ripped open, blood soaking the soil. A creature emerged, its chest barreled, its mane patchy, its eyes glinting with malice. It chased Sam through the pines, its howl a sound from nightmares. Sam escaped, finding another victim's pack, blood-soaked, its contents scattered. Rangers recovered remains but no creature, their report citing a mountain lion. Sam believes it's a territorial hybrid, its rage sparked by their intrusion, its domain the forest's heart. These accounts, spanning decades and landscapes, form a chilling mosaic, each story a shard of a larger, darker truth. Unnatural tracks, elongated, clawed, or triangular, scar the earth, their edges fresh and deep, defying known wildlife. A foul stench, like rot or decay laced with a chemical tang, heralds the predator's approach, its presence a weight in the air. Campsites lie in ruins, tents shredded, gear scattered, bodies torn with surgical savagery, the wounds too precise for bears or cougars. The creatures vary, canine, reptilian, hyena-like, but share traits. Unnatural size, cunning eyes that seem to see beyond flesh, and a speed that defies nature's limits. Their movements are deliberate, almost performative, as if they hunt not just for survival but to instill terror. Rangers find blood, remains, and little else, their reports cloaked in vague excuses. Rogue predators, unconfirmed wildlife, or natural causes. But the survivors describe not just animals but entities, their presence heavy with intent, their gaze a challenge to human arrogance. The forbidden excavation has traced these threads, not to sensationalize but to question, to peel back the wilderness's veneer and expose what lies beneath. Are these creatures undiscovered species, adapted to the wild's hidden corners, their existence erased by time or human blindness? Mutated hybrids born from environmental collapse, chemical spills, or secret labs tucked away in desert bunkers? Or something older, stirred by humanity's encroachment, their forms woven into the Earth's ancient pulse? The missing 411 phenomenon, thousands of unexplained disappearances in national parks, casts a long shadow over these accounts. Many vanish without trace, their stories swallowed by the wild, but these survivors glimpsed the culprit. Their tales suggest a predator that hunts with purpose, leaving just enough to terrify, to warn. The wilderness is not yours. The evidence is consistent across regions, from West Virginia's pine-choked ridges to Arizona's sun-scorched deserts. Tracks that defy zoology, their shapes a mockery of known paws or claws. Wounds that speak of strength and precision, as if the creature knows exactly where to strike. Rangers' uneasy silences, their glances heavy with truths they can't voice, their hands lingering on radios or guns. Local legends, swamp beasts, canyon monsters, ridge stalkers, echo these accounts, passed down through generations in hushed tones. Their details blurred, but their fear sharp. Native stories, often dismissed as folklore, speak of guardians or spirits that punish trespassers. Their forms fluid, their hunger eternal. Yet science remains silent. No carcasses, no DNA, only whispers of what might be. The wilderness is vast, its depths uncharted, its shadows impervious to satellite maps or GPS. The creatures thrive in these blind spots, their existence a secret the wild keeps. Reader, what do you make of these accounts? Are they isolated tragedies, the product of fear and wilderness, or evidence of a hidden predator stalking our wild places? Would you camp in a national park, knowing these stories? Or do they stir a primal urge to stay within the city's glow? 15 years later, I wake to the rasp of that creature in Manana, the stench of rot and ammonia in my throat, as vivid as the night it hunted us. Calvin's final gasp replays in my nightmares, his blood a stain I can't wash out, his eyes a mirror of my own failure. Rena and I drifted apart. She fled to a city, trading trees for concrete, her laughter replaced by a silence I can't breach. I avoid forests, their scent a trigger, their shadows a reminder. But the questions stalk me, relentless as the creature itself. Was it defending its territory, a primal response to our intrusion? Driven by hunger, its body warped by starvation or disease? Or something else, watching from the dark, its motives as old as the earth, its presence a warning to those who stray too far? The forbidden excavation continues to dig, collecting stories from Kenneth, Frank, Dwayne, and countless others, each account a piece of a puzzle with no edges. The survivors share a haunted kinship, their voices low, their eyes darting, their lives fractured by what they saw. Some speak of government cover-ups, secret labs, or ancient entities. Others cling to science, hoping for a species yet unnamed. I lean toward the latter, but the creature's eyes, those cold, calculating voids, suggest something more, something that knows us better than we know it. The wilderness is a paradox, beautiful, vast, and cruel. Its beauty a lure, its cruelty a truth. These creatures, whatever they are, thrive in its blind spots, their forms fluid, their hunger timeless. They don't need names to exist, only the dark, the quiet, and the unwary. If you hike, stay on marked trails, your steps loud to drown the silence. If you camp, keep a fire burning, its light a frail shield. If you smell decay or hear a rasp in the night, don't wait for answers. Run.